What a main event we just witnessed with Yair Rodriguez taking on the Korean zombie Chen Sung-jung and knocking him out in the final second of the main event. Not the fact that I had Rodriguez to win that fight, but just an entertaining scrap back and forth. The fact that Zombie was ahead and they ended up going to throw down at the very end, and it cost him. It's got to be heartbreaking for him, and of course I read a post about him being stuck in Colorado until he's cleared to fly, which is disappointing for Rodriguez. That's huge, and that definitely helps him shake off some of the issues that had been haunting him with regard to possibly ducking the fight with Magomed Sharipov. So I look at that, and that's the fight I want to see next. I want to see that fight happen next. The biggest thing is it just feels like the UFC's in almost like a stasis lock right now with contenders. I want to see them start pumping out title shots and pumping out contenders, and just like you win a couple fights, boom, you're fighting the title. We need to get back to that state where we're having these championship title fights. Where Nurmagomedov move past McGregor, Tyron Woodley, get him back in action. With Daniel Cormier, get him defending his title more and more. It's a case of I want to see title shots. I want to see fights that are meaningful, and we have some linear progression to the division. That's just me bitching. Welcome back to Kamikaze Overdrive MMA Predictions. As always, I am your host, Scott Johnson, and on this episode of the show, we are breaking down the upcoming UFC Fight Night 140, which will take place on November 17th, and emanate from Buenos Aires, Argentina, featuring 6 main card fights, which I'll be breaking down for you on this episode of the show. All of my preliminary picks, as is usually the case, available at kamikazeoverdrive.net. Now, I am coming off a fantastic showing at UFC Fight Night 139. Overall, I went 10-2. My big bankroll bundle, 165.8 units. My big reward bundle, 97.79. And again, if you don't understand how I do my units, you'll have to go to my website and figure it out. It's similar, but there are some definitely differences the way I do it. But the point is, we did exceptionally well. All my gold and silver plays won with the exception of one. My number one gold play obviously was Yair Rodriguez. I also had Ashley Yoder. Luis Pena losing a split decision is the only thing it cost us. Also, my silver plays, I had Jermaine Dirandami and Beneil Dariush hooked up together. I also had Eric Shelton to win that fight. I had those in various combinations. So again, check that stuff out. We did well. I had Devontae Smith to win by knockout as well, and I had Shelton and Yoder by decision paired up. So I did very good. My bet packs have been on fire, to say the least. I've won on 5 consecutive shows, which has been huge. And I intend to keep it rolling this event. This event looks like it could be a little bit tougher to cap and come up with some profitable opportunities, but that's why we're here. And the best part of my bet packs, it's just $15. I give you a full fight breakdown. I talk about some fantasy stuff, props, parlays, you name it, it's there. So make sure you check it out in the bet shop for $15. Or if you want to save a little bit of cash, you can subscribe, and it gets you a little bit of a discount on till the end of 2018. Also, if you're looking to bet mixed martial arts, head over to melbet.org. You can check out all the options they have available there for betting on mixed martial arts. They also have a ton of other betting opportunities for all other sports. I was actually very shocked at the number of different things they have for you to bet on. So you can click on the link in the description below to do that. And on that note, we have a heck of a lot of fights to break down, and let's get to that first one. Fight number 1 on the main card takes place in the women's strawweight division as the returning Cynthia Calvillo, 6-1-0, takes on the Brazilian Poliana Botelho. I'm probably butchering that name. She currently carries a record of 7-1. Now, Calvillo is returning after an 11-month layoff. She had a failed in-competition drug test for marijuana. Then prior to that, she had lost to Carla Esparza. Overall, she's 3-1 in the UFC, and she was getting a nice push and probably still will once she gets back into the win column. For Botelho, she comes into this matchup. She's 2-0 in the UFC with wins over Pearl Gonzalez and stopping Kondo in her last matchup. She has won 5 consecutive matchups. Physically, Botelho 4 inches taller, she'll have a 3-inch reach advantage, and she is the younger fighter by a year. Now, Botelho, you look at her, what she brings to the table. She's a black belt in Muay Thai, a BJJ blue belt. She's an incredibly aggressive striker with wild flurries, and she does a good job attacking the body when she's mixes up her offense. 6 of her 7 career wins have come by knockout, which is excellent for a women's fighter. She has 4 first-round finishes, just 1 decision win, which came in her UFC debut. And she also has a 4th-round doctor stoppage victory in her final pre-UFC bout, which tells us she can carry her power deeper into fights. When she took out Kondo in her last match, the stop really came off of a pair of massive body kicks that she landed. She really drove into the midsection of Kondo that put her down, and she landed a couple strikes to finish that fight. And that's, again, that's what she's looking to do, is put damage on you and then swarm for the finish. In her debut against Pearl Gonzalez, she showed good takedown defense, and every time Gonzalez changed levels and got in deep on a takedown attempt, we saw Botelho really getting her back to the cage and punishing her with elbows and strikes and made her pay for going for that prolonged takedown attempt. But on the flip side of that, she was pinned for a long time against the cage in that matchup. And that is concerning because she really couldn't find separation. And had Gonzalez found some success getting her to the mat or switching things up, that fight could have gone a lot differently. Now for Cynthia Calvillo, she comes from a grappling base, jiu-jitsu and wrestling, and she trains with a team alpha male, which makes her gives her a great basis to build her game around. For her overall record, 2 wins by TKO, 2 wins by submission, both coming in the UFC, and she showed 5 takedowns in her 4 UFC fights, including taking down Carla Esparza, which is no easy feat. So you see what her her method of operation is take fights down. As I previously mentioned, she subbed Amanda Cooper, who we just saw in action, and she subbed the aforementioned Pearl Gonzalez. She took a decision from JoJo Calderwood in a big fight that was a solid performance. It was one of those ones where you have to wonder, you saw little chinks in her armor, but still she looked fairly good. She's excellent in scramble, very good in transition sequences. She will attack off her back, chain submissions together, and she really loves that front headlock position if her opponent shoots on her, if she can snap her down, and then rotating to the back to set up a potential submission opportunity. She is still working to improve her striking. She's a little wild when she opens up. In the JoJo fight, she was outlanded 63-54, but did enough with her grappling and everything else and her pressure to win that matchup. And when she is exchanging, she's popping away with her left jab, throwing volume in bursts. She bounces around with a lot of movement. She was getting tagged by JoJo a little bit at range and was having some issue with the kicks, which is something that Botelho probably wants to capitalize on and land those hard kicks and see if she can replicate some of those issues. At times, Calvillo looked a little bit hesitant in that matchup to engage, but once she did, she had a lot of success, especially on the mat when she committed to her wrestling. Botelho is dangerous, but we really haven't seen her face a lot of adversity in her UFC run. Again, versus Gonzalez, she struggled to keep distance. She struggled to keep her away. And again, Gonzalez couldn't complete those takedowns, so Botelho was able to get through it and picked up the victory. Unless Botelho can hurt Calvillo early, her aggression is going to be countered with level changes. And if Calvillo can get in on your hips, she's going to drag that fight to the ground. Even if she pulls guard, she's going to have success operating. She doesn't want to pull guard, but it's going to give her an opportunity to work in that world. I think Calvillo eventually gets her down to the ground, gets in a position to finish this fight, whether it be through just early takedowns or through wearing her down and exhaustion. And my prediction is Cynthia Calvillo to defeat Poliana Botelho by submission. Moving up now to the men's bantamweight division, Guido Ninja Cannetti of Argentina, with a record of 8 wins and 3 losses, takes on the Ecuadorian Chito Marlon Vera with a current record of 11 wins, 5 losses, and 1 draw. Now, it's shocking to see Cannetti still hanging around in the UFC. Probably they had their eyes on this event. 4 fights in the last 5 years. He is 2-2. Now, he did fight twice in 2018, which is big for him. And again, he's fighting at home for the first time since 2012. For Vera, 5-4 overall inside the octagon. Now, he has won 4 of his last 6 and coming off a TKO win over Luigi Buren, a fight he was losing, and he has finished 4 of his 5 UFC victories. Physically, Vera, 2 inches taller, he'll have a 2-inch reach, and he is the younger fighter by 13 years. Now, I said Vera's from Ecuador, so he'll be fighting enemy territory, but it's worth noting that Cannetti's actually coming off a fight where he fought and defeated Diego Rivas. Rivas, they were fighting at home in Chile. He was the only Chilean fighter on the card, so Cannetti played, upset, pull off the upset there in enemy territory, so Vera will be looking to do the same. Now, Vera has faced some impressive competition when you look at the record he's faced. John Lineker, Brad Pickett, Brian Kelleher, Douglas DeAndrade, not beating Pickett, beating Kelleher, losing the other 2 fights. He's done, fairly well overall. As far as Cannetti, he fought Kung Ho Kong, which is the biggest name he's faced. His other 3 UFC opponents are combined 6-9 inside the octagon, so not exactly top-level opposition. So when you look at things, the quality and quantity of opposition certainly favors Chito in that respect. Both fighters were actually competitors on the Ultimate Fighter Latin America 1. Vera won his quarterfinal bout, but pulled out. Cannetti, who lost his quarterfinal bout, then took Vera's place and lost in the semifinals. So a little bit of they've crossed paths before. Now, looking at Vera first, he's a diversified fighter, 6 wins by submission. He's an incredibly active guard. He's a capable striker with a very good kicking game. When he took out Brad Pickett, he stopped him with a head kick against Brian Kelleher. He caught him with a submission off his back. Kelleher known for having a pretty good wrestling game. In his last matchup, he was underachieving for the most part. Again, he took that fight on late notice, but he found success when he started pushing forward and getting aggressive. He ultimately hurt his opponent with a body shot, a couple body shots, and put him down. Now, Vera doesn't have a great record in decisions, 2-5 when going the distance, but 4 losses have come in the UFC against very good competition. In his last fight, again, as I said, he wasn't pushing forward nearly as effectively, and that's part of one of the concerns I have, especially when fights go the distance. If he can't stop his opponent, is he doing enough to win a decision? For Cannetti, he's a brawler. He does come from a kickboxing background. He has 3 wins by knockout. Both of his UFC victories have come by decision. Statistically, even though he got wins, they were not strong performances. He landed 32 and 25 strikes in each of those 2 fights, and he won the takedown battle slightly by a count of 5-3, but he did enough to edge out those matchups. Prior to the UFC, all of his fights ended in the first round. And, he's aggressive. That's an indication of that. Against Kung Ho Kong, his best opponent to date, he was looking good early on and then eventually got submitted in that fight. And submissions have been a major concern for Cannetti. He's lost 3 times by submission, and it seems he gets a little bit tired and starts to struggle if he is pushed, and that opens up that opportunity. Vera coming into this matchup, he's coming in on a full camp, which he didn't have last time. I expect to see him offer better volume, and he's the threat of scoring a takedown or working off his back is going to keep Cannetti from wanting to go to the mat. If Cannetti, I don't want to see Vera hanging off his back and relying on his guard, but at least it should force Guido to avoid shooting for a takedown if he wants to go that route. I think Vera's going to push Cannetti. He's going to tire him out. Eventually, he's going to get a takedown or force Cannetti into a sloppy shot and capitalize on that. Cannetti fighting at home will be jacked. Actually, I think it'll work against him. For an aggressive fighter who's known for gassing, it could lead to an adrenaline dump, and my prediction is Marlon Vera to defeat Guido Cannetti by submission. Moving up the ladder to the UFC's middleweight division, we have a bout between Brazilian Cezar Mutanche Ferreira, 14-6-0, Ultimate Fighter Latin America winner. He meets the debuting Ian the Hurricane Heinisch with a current record of 11 wins and 1 loss. Now, originally, Ferreira was supposed to take on Tom Breeze. Breeze pulled out of the fight. Heinisch is moving in on a week's notice to replace him. He has won 3 in a row, including a Tuesday Night Contenders bout. His only loss coming to UFC fighter Marcus Perez back at LFA 22. For Ferreira, he's won back-to-back bouts, including the submission over recent winner Carl Roberson, split decision versus Nate Marquardt as well. He's 5-1 in his last 6 appearances. Physically, Ferreira, 2 inches taller. He will have a sizable 6-inch reach advantage, and he is he is 3 years older than Heinisch. Now, looking at Ian Heinisch first, he's a former LFA champion, 4 wins by knockout, 2 submission victories, 5-0 in the scorecards. His lone loss against Perez coming by submission. He is a 2-time high school wrestling champion. He had a very brief collegiate career, and you can very much see that wrestling approach in his mixed martial arts attack. His best method of attack, or most prominent method of attack, is he likes to punch and change levels for a takedown. Once on the mat, he's capable of setting up submissions or doing a lot of damage. Recently, he stopped one of his opponents with massive elbow strikes from the guard, which once he can do a lot of damage from top position depending on his approach. Now, on his Tuesday Night Contenders bout against Sumter, he was taken down early. Now, he did attack off his back, but he did seem to struggle a little bit with Sumter pushing the pace as far as a grappler was concerned, and we've seen that in a couple of different fights where he's lost position, and again, the Perez fight, which we'll talk about momentarily, it ultimately cost him his undefeated record. He has a tendency, again, to launch in and throw power, but that opens him up to counter takedowns, and that's what Marcus Perez did. He countered, got in on his hips, put him on the mat, and ultimately set up a fight-ending submission. He does have some big power in his right hand. He recently scored a big knockout with that right hand. But again, he's still looking to close the distance behind his offense and shoot a takedown. Also watch for a decent right high kick. Now, Ferreira's chin's a major concern, and there's a very real possibility that Heinisch could catch him and knock him out. He only needs one. Ferreira's been knocked out in 4 of his 6 losses, all 4 brutal knockouts, the last coming in 2015 against Jorge Masvidal. Now, Cezar, he can strike, absolutely, but he wants to avoid and limit those striking exchanges to avoid testing his chin. His sudden resurgence and recent success absolutely has been a direct result of his focus on jiu-jitsu and wrestling. Over his last 6 fights, where he has a 5-1 record, he's landed 17 takedowns. Against Roberson, he showed excellent timing, changing levels as Roberson pushed forward and putting him on the mat. Once on the mat, he has good top control. He breaks his opponent down very effectively, and he can work towards a submission. He really likes that arm triangle choke where he can control advanced position and get the finish, and that's how Perez got Heinisch. The major concern for me, again, is Heinisch catching him, either using his wrestling to stay vertical and catching with a knockout punch, or just catching with a knockout punch during one of the first exchanges. Absolutely a reality. But the fact that he's had not a lot of time to engage and prepare for this fight, and he's facing a very good grappler, the type of guy he might not want to tangle with on the mat, which could throw him off a little bit. Again, Heinisch could come in very loose and have a really good night because there's not a lot of pressure on him because the expectations are very low. But I just think Ferreira has all the tools to beat him here. He needs to stick to jiu-jitsu. Look for him a time when a Heinisch's big pushes forward. We get him down on the mat. And again, in multiple occasions, I've seen Heinisch struggle with guys who put him on the defensive as far as grappling is concerned. And my prediction is Cezar Ferreira to defeat Ian Heinisch by submission. Fight number 4 in the main card takes place in the UFC's light heavyweight division as Khalil Rountree Jr., 8-2-0 with 1 no contest, takes on the debuting Johnny Walker with a current record of 13 wins and 3 losses. Now, Rountree is coming off an unreal knockout victory over Gokhan Saki. Huge win for him. He was a big underdog. He has 3 wins and a no contest in his last 4 fights. A no contest that was originally a loss. Walker's coming off a Tuesday Night Contender Series Brazil victory over UFC veteran Henrique da Silva, also known as Frankenstein. He has won 6 in a row. Now, Walker is 6'5". He's taller than John Jones fighting at light heavyweight, which is damn impressive. He is 4 inches taller than Rountree, and he'll have a 6-inch reach advantage, and he's the younger man by 2 years. Looking at Walker first, 11 wins by knockout, 2 losses by knockout, 2-1 in fights ended by submission, 1 decision victory. He has 11 first-round finishes, and overall he's gone outside of the first round 5 times, winning 3 of them. When you look at his last 3 pre-Tuesday Night Contender opponents, they have a combined record of 35-17. So the guy hasn't been facing cans. He's been facing good regional opposition. He's a very big light heavyweight, dangerous, but still incredibly raw. He doesn't use his reach always that effectively and often closes the gap himself. He's the type of guy, though, that has the tools and physical abilities that once he molds everything together and crafts it the way it should be, he's going to be a very good fighter, or has at least has the potential. He throws a jumping knee a lot, and he did a lot in his Tuesday Night Contenders fight, too much, and was letting his opponent close the distance and have some success once in range. He will use the clinch attack and look for knee strikes and elbow strikes on the inside, but again, not utilizing that reach can be a mistake. When he does some of his best work, it's when he throws those long straight punches, liking to brawl and mix it up. He's got good power, and he's got some good hard low kicks. On the mat, he did attack a guillotine. It was kind of a reactionary to an opponent's takedown attempt, but he's got a good sprawl, and he can sweep, and if he gets the ground, we saw him mount his opponent, go for a rear naked choke, had a lot of success there. He was slowing down in round 3, but still attacking. Now, for Rountree, as we saw in his last fight, he's an incredibly explosive and dangerous fighter. Throws everything into his offense. He moves a lot and can knock guys out with one shot. But he is technically, with that no contest, when you look at it for what it was, he's 2-2 in fights that go outside of the first round. He gets tired early in fights. He's aggressive to a fault, and he loses a lot of his power and a lot of his movement and just needs to find a better balance of offense and conservation of his cardio. He can still do damage later in fights, but he's not nearly as effective. He's also had issues with his takedown defense and submission defense. He's vulnerable to getting taken down. He's had issues there before, and Walker's not a great wrestler, but again, if he can catch something in kind of a transition or a scramble, that could be his best bet. Rountree can finish early, but Walker's length, I think, is going to give him some issues. Even if he doesn't really use it that effectively, the fact that Rountree's really going to have to close the distance and try and, 6'5" versus 6'1", that's a big gap to try and close. Rountree's getting a lot of hop coming off the Gokhan victory, which I think is adding to his the scenario here as far as who's the favorite coming into this, and Walker's debuting, which further diminishes who he is. Look for Walker to survive early onslaughts in this, really mix it up and brawl, and I think he gets this fight in rounds 2 and 3, and even though it's not his best bet, I think we're going to see him have success there, land the better strikes in rounds 2 and 3. Walker, he could get some top time as Rountree gets tired, possibly might even look to mix it up early on and get him to the ground, and my prediction is Johnny Walker to pull off the upset and defeat Khalil Rountree by submission. In the co-main event of the evening, we're in the UFC's featherweight division. His former title challenger and 13th ranked Ricardo the Bully Lamas, 18-7-0, takes on the always entertaining 14th ranked Darren the Damage Elkins with a current record of 25 wins and 6 losses. Now, Elkins recently had a 6-fight winning streak snapped by Alexandre Volkanovski. And during that streak, he beat Chaz Skelly, Mirsad Bektik, Dennis Bermudez, Michael Johnson. That's an impressive list of guys. For Lamas, he had a good run. He won 6 of 7 fights, with his only loss in that stretch being a title fight loss against Jose Aldo. But in his last 7 matchups, he's just 3-4, and he's lost back-to-back fights, including a split decision to the aforementioned Bektik. Elkins, physically 2 inches taller. They have the same reach, and Darren is the younger man by 2 years. Now, it's not hard to... I love Darren Elkins, but you could definitely argue he has significantly overachieved for what his expectations were. He's gritty, he's durable, he works very hard, he keeps pushing forward, and he doesn't break when other fighters break. That's what makes him effective. For Ricardo Lamas, he's incredibly talented. He worked his way to a title shot, didn't have a very good showing, held his own against Aldo, but ultimately he's hit a ceiling when he takes on guys like Aldo, Chad Mendes, and Max Holloway, guys that all defeated him. But now he appears to be trending down, working down, falling down the rankings. The knockout loss against Josh Emmett, that split against Bektik, he's now losing to more and more guys as they move past him. Not at the top anymore, still a very good fighter. Elkins overall has feasted on opponents that either get tired and wear out and can't go the distance. That's ultimately what he has his most success at. And that goes hand in hand with guys who either have poor or compromised wrestling defense. That allows Elkins to get on top and just further go to work and further exhaust them. You look at Michael Johnson, he gassed out. Mirsad Bektik, in just a shocking turn of events, faded in that fight and got finished. Chaz Skelly got tired, couldn't defend the takedowns, but Alexandre Volkanovski did not, and Darren Elkins' willingness to take the damage ultimately caught up to him. It's that style. It's not going to do well against guys that don't fade. It's not going to do well against guys that are going to be there constantly to keep hitting you. And Lamas, for the most part, isn't the type of guy who's going to fade. He keeps pushing. He likes to mix it up. He's got a good offensive flow as well. He throws good leg kicks and a solid jab. Very good weapons against a fighter like Elkins, who constantly is moving forward and willing to exchange and take those weapons. One area of interest in this matchup is going to be the wrestling. Elkins' wrestling has been a key to a lot of success, but he can also be taken down. We've seen guys have a lot of success putting him on the mat. When you look at his numbers, he has just 3 takedowns over his 5 UFC losses compared to 20 takedowns over his last 6 UFC wins. So wrestling is crucial. Lamas can be taken down, but it's not easy to take him down. He gets up very quickly. He's got a very nasty guillotine that he can threaten with. He can sweep off his back, but he does want to avoid being in that position against Elkins because that lets Darren do what he does best. Lamas' chin's also been a bit of a question mark as well. He's been knocked out on multiple occasions by big hitters, and can Elkins catch him? It's not really his way of doing things, knocking guys out cold. He more often than not will catch them and wear them up with volume, and that's where he gets a stoppage, if he gets a stoppage at all. But again, if he gets in a range, he could land something short in a flurry and put Lamas down. Ultimately, I think Lamas is just the better striker. He's going to defend the takedowns. Elkins is just too willing to take damage, and my prediction is Ricardo Lamas to defeat Darren Elkins by decision. In the main event of the evening, we're in the UFC's welterweight divisions. The 8th-ranked Neil Magny, 21-7-0, takes on the Argentinian, the 10th-ranked Santiago Ponzinibbio, with a current record of 27 wins and 3 losses. Now, these are 2 very good welterweights. This is a testament to how good the welterweight division is. 2 very good welterweights who have not got a title shot and are really not even in the conversation as of right now. Magny has won back-to-back bouts versus Craig White and Carlos Condit. He is 6-2 in his last 8 fights, with losses to Rafael dos Anjos and Lorenz Larkin. Ponzinibbio, he has won 6 consecutive bouts and 8 of his last 9. His only loss to the aforementioned Larkin coming by TKO. And you look at the list of guys that he's beaten. Perry, Meg Perry, Gunnar Nelson, Nordine Taleb, Zach Cummings, Court McGee, Sean Strickland. That's a who's who of that middling group of talented welterweight fighters who are either on the cusp of the top 15 or just quite can't get there. Arguably, the winner of this fight gets that push to the next level and gets that top 5 opponent. So that's huge for these guys. Physically, Magny 6'3". He's 3 inches taller. He will have a sizable 7-inch reach advantage over his opponent. He's the younger man by a year, and it's worth noting that Santiago has been out of this fight for 11 months. Now, as I said, Ponzinibbio, he is fighting at home in Argentina, the first time since 2010, and he is 7-0. He fought the first 7 fights of his career at home and won all 7 of them. This is his second UFC main event. He's never gone 5 rounds before finishing that fight over Gunnar Nelson very early in the opening frame. For Neil Magny, this is also his second UFC main event. He went 5 rounds in Mexico and took a split decision against Calvin Gastelum, a fight I correctly predicted. So that was a good experience for him, and it's also worth noting Magny is incredibly well-traveled. He fought in England, got a victory, fought in Canada twice, went 1-1, fought in Australia with a win, got a win in Mexico. He's fought 3 times in Brazil, winning 1 of those fights, also wins in the Philippines and New Zealand. Overall, he's fought 10 times abroad in the UFC, winning 7 times. That's impressive. So going into Argentina is not going to be a big issue for him. So the first question is, how does Santiago win this matchup? It's with power strikes, both punches and leg kicks. Magny has very long, skinny legs, and Ponzinibbio could do a lot of damage by hammering them with low kicks. Magny had a lot of trouble with the kicking arsenal of Lorenz Larkin, and Larkin landed 13 leg kicks in the opening round. We also saw Rafael dos Anjos drop Magny with a low kick that led to his submission victory, so that's an area that we certainly could see Santiago go to. He landed 14 leg kicks against Perry, over 3 rounds, mind you, but they will add up, especially as this fight advances and slows Magny down. Ponzinibbio also has the power striking advantage. I'd also give him a slight edge in quickness as well. Magny has struggled with power punchers. Lorenz Larkin stopped them. Hector Lombard hurt him. Yu Lim back in the day hurt him as well. Now the last 2 guys gassed out, allowed Magny to rally back. Larkin did not got the finish. Ponzinibbio seems to do his best work when he can close the gap and force his opponent to fight off the cage, and that really negates Neil's reach, and that's a big factor here, is if Ponzinibbio can get inside the reach and land damage, and actually makes his length work against him, he's not nearly as effective. On the flip side, how does Magny win this fight? He wins it with cardio, volume, and grappling. Ponzinibbio has gone the distance in 3 of his last 4 fights, but he's never really been pushed, and he's never gone 5 rounds. You look at his last 3 opponents that have landed over 3 rounds, 51, 48, and 35 significant strikes in each fight. That's not huge. Magny has shown he can pile up offense. In the Lombard fight, which he didn't even go the distance, and was just an outright brawl, he landed 148 significant strikes. 54 against Kelvin Gastelum, 68 against Eric Silva. So just a little bit above the threshold that Ponzinibbio, the guys he's been facing, have been dishing out. So that's a key to him, is push that pace. Magny has to use his reach, use that jab, keep Ponzinibbio out of range, and counter his low kicks with punches. Neil ultimately has to push him early, but really start to open up in round 3 and beyond. Hopefully get that round in the bag early, but ultimately really crank it up in rounds 3 and keep going from there. But in the same process, he has to avoid taking damage when he's doing that. The key to this also could be his takedowns. He landed 6 against Carlos Condit, 6 against Calvin Gastelum, 4 against Eric Silva. So he can, wrestle with guys. Ponzinibbio, 57% takedown defense. He gave up a lot more takedowns early in his UFC career. He's become much better at defending them. He's given up just 2 over his last 7 fights. But again, defending takedowns even could serve to tire him out. Ultimately, Santiago, he's going to be jacked to be at home, which could be a concern because when you're fighting in front of friends and family for the first time in a long time, there's a lot of distractions, there's a lot of pressure, it could be an issue. If Santiago doesn't execute early and get on top of things early, Magny's chances of winning this fight go up significantly. That being said, again, Magny's struggles with aggressive power punchers only seem to, are a major concern, and he only seems to rally if they're able to fade and let him back into the fight. I think Ponzinibbio is going to land those big leg kicks early, keep Magny backing up, going to keep him very vertical and standing, and keep that chin high, and he's going to land power punches. And my prediction is Santiago Ponzinibbio to defeat Neil Magny by TKO. So those are my 6 main card predictions for UFC Fight Night 140. All of my preliminary picks will be available at kamikazeoverdrive.net. I apologize for the speed at which I was talking. Every time I did a breakdown, it seemed like I was getting interrupted and had to restart, so I did the best I possibly could. You can also head over to my website. Bet packs are $15. I have been rolling big profit on 5 consecutive shows. We'll look to make it 6 here. Melbet.org, there's a link in the description below if you want to check them out as well to place your bets. Fantastic opportunities there. Follow me at KO_predictions on Twitter. Email me through my website if you have any questions. I'm always available there. If you have any issues logging into the bet packs, also hit me up there. Again, thank you very much for tuning in. We got a lot of fights coming up. This is a fun one of those fun regional cards. I can't wait for this action to get underway, and I will talk to you guys very soon. Thanks for tuning in.